front, I think. Welcome to Coastside Poetry. Thanks to those of you who've zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet either physically or virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken poetry. I'm Diane Lee Moomey, and Steve Long and I are your hosts this evening. Our featured poet event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak, so anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome East Coast poet Anna M. Evans. Anna gained her MFA from Bennington College and has received fellowships from the MacDowell Artists Colony and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. She currently teaches at West Windsor Art Center and Rowan College at Burlington County, New Jersey. She's currently the editor of the online women's poetry journal, Mezzo Coming. In addition, her Barefoot Muse Press publishes poetry chapbooks. Her own collection, Underdog Waters, Surviving the Titanic, is available from Able Muse Press, and her sonnet collection, Sisters and Courtsans, is available from White Violet Press. Visit her at annamevans.com. And now please welcome Anna Evans.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here on the West Coast, digitally speaking anyway. The books that Diane just mentioned kindly, I will be reading from all of them. So after the reading, I will put links in the chat. So if you wish to purchase them from the small presses, that you can do that. And of course, they're also all available on Amazon. I'm going to begin with a poem from one of my early chapbooks, The Stolen From, which is about my experiences when I was teaching poetry in a group home for people with memory issues and Alzheimer's. And I wrote this poem called Zeitgeber, which won the Rattle Reader's Choice Award back in 2012. It's in very small print, so I need to put my glasses on. Zeitgeber is a German word, and it means, well, let me read the quote. 1 hour in sunshine every morning is the best Zeitgeber. Residential group settings for people living with Alzheimer's often include access to a garden designed for safety, wayfinding, and place awareness. And that's from the great book about Alzheimer's, I'm Still Here, by John Zeisel. The courtyard's small, but pleasant in its way. Young birches, laurel, and a bed of roses. A winding path picked out in red and grey. The painted wrought iron chairs where one supposes 2 residents could sit and play at chess upon the table, basking in the sun while sipping tea. But here, I must confess, such fantasy breaks down as soon begun. For Iris fidgets there among the blooms. She says, is this a maze? I think I'm lost. The single door leads back into the rooms which keep her warm and safe despite the cost. Still, sitting in the rich September light, I think she knows how far she is from night. Her body clock is faulty, but the sun can tweak her ancient mechanism just right, and for a while at least the thing will run. She can't explain what day it is, what year. Such things are social constructs that we learn, but she can tell you autumn's drawing near, and that she likes to see the maples turn. All that remains was tattooed on her brain by repetition or the changing seasons. The poems of her school days and the rain are hers by heart, with no regard for reasons. While her clock ticks, we'll oil, rewind, adjust. We come from dust and we return to dust. We come from dust and we return to dust, whether it happens piecemeal or at once. This painted table has small specks of rust, which barely spoil its Grecian elegance, a testament to all the storms it's known and to the many more that it can bear. Still, the day comes that no one can postpone. Rust will have stained it almost everywhere. Who knows? Perhaps instead of grinding rains, a lightning strike will hit its center first. Meanwhile, its latticed surface entertains Iris, who's been favored with or cursed This place to savor her last hours of day, a courtyard, small but pleasant in its way. Thank you. And that was, of course, a what I call a tiara of sonnets, a sort of mini version of a crown. The next poem I'm going to read is from another chapbook of mine, Superheroes and Villanelles. I adore Villanelles, and I have written many of them, although the poem in here is one of the superhero poems, not the Villanelle. As you can tell, I was originally English, so it is not surprising that one of my heroes was Queen Elizabeth I of England, one of the glorious queens of our history. Virgin Queen. My textbooks seem controlled by bishops, kings, emperors, and popes, with one exception. You, Elizabeth, who had done things princes would quail at, who had from conception flaunted the rules with beauty, grace, and wit, walked a thin line and got away with it. I was obsessed. Your sly, six-fingered mother, your florid father's appetites, the church dissolved, divorce, adultery, and other intrigues of the court. A girl could search the TV, just 4 channels then, and find no drama more addictively designed. I wanted your clothes, the birdcage seed pearl skirts, the ruffs, the silks, the velvet and brocade. And yet you had learned early how love hurts, sworn to abjure men and stay a maid for England. Virgin by choice, when I was still unkissed, you cheered me up with your free will. Even though it blighted your later life, the bitter spinster, cheeks daubed with white lead, while I picked different options, became a wife twice, took many others to my bed. I always loved you, not for fleeting beauty, but for conceit beyond the call of duty. I'm going to concentrate on reading books from my 2 main collections, poems from my 2 main collections. This is Sisters and Courtsans, my sonnet collection of poems about nuns and women of easy virtue throughout history. They're all first-person persona poems, and really you have to, this is a bit of a plug for the book, you have to read the whole book all the way through to get a sense of what I was trying to accomplish with the book. But the clue I'll give you is that the nuns are not all happy and the women of easy virtue are not all sad. So I'll begin with this poem, My Life as an Anglo-Saxon Novitiate, which I love because it has a dog in it, and I'm a huge dog lover. I was quite lonely here at first. Each day, Vespers took a long time coming round. I missed our dog, but then, in lieu of pay, the abbess got a German hunting hound, and I was singled out to be her keeper. Hilda, as they named her, has bright eyes that take in everything. I swear she's deeper than most people I meet. Now, when I rise at prime, she waits for me with wagging tail. I feed her scraps, and then on our long walk, she catches rabbits, hares, and once a quail. I know it's silent time, but still I talk to her. I think we're part of God's great plan. We can't know how, just do the best we can. Okay, so as I said, the poems move chronologically through the timeline, and they also dot all over the world, because it wouldn't be fair to just concentrate on people who were English or American, which is the 2 main countries I've lived in. And one of the things I love about persona poems is that I get to do the voices. It's one of my favorite poems in the book. My life as a French Carmelite nun. Outside these walls, the revolution rages, but inside all is calm and I am safe, tending the garden, tomatoes, in their cages, the vegetable patch. When restrictions chafe, I climb up to the highest tower and view the city burning, right in the square. It's true, there's often not that much to do, but better cloistered here than dead out there. In my hours of silent contemplation, I must confess I have wondered about God, his tolerance for death and desecration. Then yesterday, I saw a sign, a clod of earth that looked like Jesus. Vive la France! It's good to know that nothing's left to chance. So that's my French Carmelite nun. not all of the ones in voices are happy. This is actually the first poem I wrote, although it's not the first chronologically, but it's another one that gives me an opportunity to do the voices, so I'd like to read it. My life as a Victorian streetwalker. It wasn't what I dreamed of as a kid. I thought I'd get the factory or the mill, but Ruddy Barry knocked me up, he did, and then the baby kept on falling ill. I share a basement with a girl called Nell, and we take turns to go and earn the rent. Most of the blokes are ugly or they smell, though every now and then you get a gent. I mostly think about me little boy, not God or punishment for mortal sin. He is the only thing that brings me joy. And what's the point? There's no way I can win. I'm up against the wall or on me back, and either way the next one might be Jack. That would be Jack the Ripper, of course, famous Victorian killer of prostitutes. So I'm trying to give you a sprinkling of the people in this book, but like I say, you really have to go buy the book. The next poem is about the most virtuous woman in the book. My life as a Polish nun during World War II. We ran an orphanage in Old Gdansk, which overflowed in 1939. Daily, the Germans rolled by in their tanks. We kept our heads well down and towed the line. But any child that came here in the night, no questions asked, was never turned away. Starving, beaten, sick, half dead with fright, Christian or Jew, with orphans, who can say? We had to teach the Jewish ones the creed, so the Gestapo wouldn't know our game. The irony of sowing that small seed, it wasn't lost on me, though not our aim. Children are dear to God, Gentile or Jew. We wanted to save them all. We saved a few. And the last poem in the book is the last one I'll read from this manuscript. It could have gone anywhere in the book, to be honest, but I put it at the end because it kind of sums up what I'm trying to do here a little bit. And it begins with a Zen koan. My life as a Tibetan yogini. The hand that points to the moon is not the moon. I don't pretend to teach. I meditate upon the eightfold path, sometimes commune with other seekers after truth. If fate be willing, I shall reach nirvana yet. It doesn't matter. I'm prepared to wait as many lives as those I now forget that I've already lived. I am content to be inside the moment and to let the universe unfold as she is meant. I find her frequency and try to tune it in before my shrine, inhale the scent of lotus blossom and jasmine as I croon. The hand that points to the moon is not the moon. Okay, I'm going to read from Underdog Waters, Surviving the Titanic next. And if you heard that little yap, that's my miniature schnauzer. She's now sitting on my husband's knee, so hopefully she's not going to be yapping anymore. There are no poems about my dog in Underdog Waters. It is a book about my mother's death as seen through the lens of the Titanic disaster, which may sound odd, but there are a lot of things when you come to think about it, when somebody dies who's very close to you unexpectedly, and the Titanic disaster, there are quite a few similarities, the unexpectedness, the belief that the disaster can be averted, but then it can't. And of course, the fact that it all happened so quickly. Most of the poems I'm going to read are from this section that is largely about the Titanic. So don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom, although of course the ship does sink. I hope I'm not spoiling things for anyone when I say that. And I'm going to begin, I'm just checking on the time, that's good, with the first poem in the book, which is called Sister Ships. You will have noticed maybe that I love sonnets. I've just read a whole bunch. There's a bunch in this book too. And this one is a mirror sonnet, which if you know anything about them means that it reads this, there's two sonnets, but they read the same forward and back. Sister Ships. What an experience traveling on the Olympic. She is the flagship of the White Star Line. Compared to other ships, she looks gigantic, the epitome of luxury in design. Her first-class cabins are spacious and opulent. She has a Turkish bath, a swimming pool. Many passengers are prominent in high society. She is a jewel. This is a truly marvelous time to be rich. It isn't quite so comfy in third class. And if by chance the voyage hits a glitch, an iceberg say, nothing will come to pass. She is unsinkable. No need to fear. Look at her, waiting at Southampton Pier. Look at her, waiting at Southampton Pier. She is unsinkable. No need to fear an iceberg, say. Nothing will come to pass. Even if the voyage should hit a glitch, it may not be so comfy in third class. This is a truly marvelous time to be rich in high society. She is a jewel. Many passengers are prominent. She has a Turkish bath, a swimming pool. Her first class cabins are spacious and opulent, the epitome of luxury in design. Compared to other ships, she is gigantic, the perfect flagship of the White Star Line. What an experience traveling on the Titanic. And the next poem I'm reading from here, actually, I'm going to skip that because I sense that I've overcompensated on time and I've probably put too many sonnets in the mix. But here is a poem that is not a sonnet. This is actually a form I invented called the haiku, which is a sequence of haiku that also reads as a pontoon. And if you're getting the sense that I love formal poems, you're right. This poem is called Underclass, and like many of the poems in the Titanic section, it has an epigraph. Mary refused to be parted from John under the Women and Children First Edict and was lost in the sinking. Black ice in my veins. I can't see my husband, John, the man I stayed with. Sleep pulls me under. I can't see John, my husband. Someone's crying out. Sleep pulls me under beneath the water again. Someone's crying out. In the name of God, beneath the water again, my mouth full of brine. In the name of God, can anybody hear us? My mouth full of brine. Freezing bitter tears, can anybody hear us? The boats are far off. Freezing bitter tears, cannot summon them near us. The boat's so far off. The man I stayed with cannot summon them near us. Black ice in my veins. Okay, I'm going to maybe come back to that one, but what I do want to read is one of my favorite poems in the book, which is an abecedarian, and it's called Animals of the Titanic. Now, abecedarians are very hard to do. That's a poem where every line begins with the letters of the alphabet in order, right? Because the reason they're very hard to do is because the alphabet ends XYZ. And those difficult words to end a poem with. You'll see what I did about that. And by the way, this is a 100% true story, as are most of the stories I have in the book. Took a few liberties with the persona poems, but not too many really. They're all true stories. Animals of the Titanic. Astor's Airedale, Kitty, perished along with her owner. Ben, Captain Smith's Irish wolfhound, put ashore in Southampton. Chow Chow, left behind by Harry Anderson, drowned. Dog, a fox terrier, last seen swimming. English foxhounds, 100, booked on alternate passage. Frou Frou, detached from her grip on Helen Bishop's gown, perished. Gamine de Picon, prize-winning French bulldog, drowned. Hens and roosters, caged, drowned. Isham, Anne Elizabeth, and her Great Dane, bodies recovered together. Jenny, ship's mouser, drowned. Kittens of Jenny, likewise. Lady, Pomeranian of first-class passenger Margaret Hayes, survived. Mice and rats, free living, drowned. Newfoundland Wriggle, survivor and hero, apocryphal. Objections raised to the 3 dogs in the lifeboats, none. Pomeranian belonging to Elizabeth Rothschild survived. Quote, I refuse to get on the lifeboat without my dog. Rothschild Martin, body never recovered. Sun Yat-sen, Pekingese of Henry Sleeper Harper, survived. Terrier and Spaniel of the Philadelphia Carters perished. Unconscionable, the 56 children left out of the lifeboats. Vacancies on the lifeboats, 40%. Wealthy survivors, 200 plus 3 dogs, and XYZ and XYZ and XYZ. I told you, you would see what I did there. Okay, the last poem in the Titanic section, I'm just checking on my time, we're good, is the sort of connective tissue between the whole Titanic section and my mother's passing. It's called A Meditation on Loss, and I'm feeling a good voice, so I'm going to sing the epigraph. It's from a children's song that I used to know when I was a kid. Oh, they built the ship Titanic to sail the ocean blue, for they thought it was a ship that water would never go through. It was on its maiden trip that an iceberg hit the ship. It was sad when the great ship went down. When death arrives on such a monstrous scale, it feels unreal, which is, of course, made worse by all the ways that we retell the tale in stories, movies, songs, and even verse. Add to this how strange that world can sound with its rigid social structure and quaint clothes. A moral fable, 1,500 drowned through arrogance. The fact is, no one knows quite how we measure loss. It's not by lives. Thousands die daily, diseases, famine, war. Is it the grief of the person who survives that makes a single loss hard to ignore? Those deaths don't move me more than any other, but every day I live, I miss my mother. And I'm just going to read 2 poems from the sort of more familial section of the book, and then 1 poem from my Courtsans Chronicles, and then I will hand it over to the open mic. But here we go. So the more familial section sort of covers not just my mother's death, but also my experiences with the Titanic as a human being. And of course, I watched the movie Titanic by James Cameron, and this is a Villanelle based on that. It's called On Visiting the Titanic Exhibition in Vegas with My Teenage Daughters, and it has the epigraph from the movie, I'm the king of the world. Trust me, I say, you're going to be enthralled. Curious, they wander toward the model ship. They are the undisputed queens of the world. The bills of lading, the lists of people killed aren't that exciting to them. I bite my lip. Trust me, I'd said, you're going to be enthralled. But then we enter a room that's kept so cold the genuine iceberg loses barely a drip. They are the undisputed queens of the world. And next, a chamber where a swathe of the hold brought from the seabed is set up, a vertical strip. Trust me, I'd said, I think they are enthralled. Of course, there's a place where the movie set's installed from the famous scene. This won't be cheap, I quip. But they are the undisputed queens of the world. My youngest stands at the bow, her arms unfurled. Her sister steadies her, one hand upon her hip. Trust me, she says, I can only watch, enthralled. They are the undisputed queens of the world. And then I'm going to read the last poem in this section. Another sonnet, sorry. Casualties of Fast Living. A sudden fluttering motion drew my eye toward the windshield wiper on the right. A large and richly patterned butterfly was pinioned there, wings split and wedged in tight, and I was doing 70 on a road with no hard shoulder, couldn't stop for 5 long miles. I pulled to the inside lane and slowed, knew from her flailing legs she was alive. At last, a pebbled strip appeared. I braked, gingerly lifted the arm, assessed her plight. Her abdomen was crushed. My spirit ached. I prized her off, and she attempted flight but failed. I moved her to a grassy bed, said prayers for all of those I've left for dead. Okay, I think I have time to read another poem from this, the Tritina Chronicles. It's one of my chapbooks. A lot of fun. Wrote this in April 2020 when we were all on solid lockdown. It's a set of Tritinas. There is one for every day of April, and they are generated by getting a newspaper article about the pandemic, putting it in a word cloud, and looking at the most used words in it, and picking not the top 3, because if I'd done that, like I would have had to put Donald Trump in every poem, and I didn't want to do that. But 3 of the top sort of 5 or 10 words, and then writing a tritina based on those words. So I'm going to read one of my favorite Tritinas from that, and then I think we can be done for this portion of the reading. Where is my favorite one? Okay, so we all know that the pandemic, I need to explain what a tritina is. It's a mini version of a sestina, right? So a sestina takes 6 words, and there are 6 stanzas of 6 lines in which those 6 words rotate. And then there's a 3-line stanza at the end, which uses all 6 of the words, 2 per line. Tritina, much easier to write, is 3 stanzas of 3 lines with 3 rotating words and 1 line at the end with all 3 words in. Right, so that's a tritina. And what I was going to explain was, I think I don't need to explain it, and the basis for this poem is that the pandemic exposed some social rifts that we had in society that we didn't feel very comfortable with, but they existed and were there. So this is one. She'd worked for almost 30 years at the hospital, and for each of the tritinas, I give the headline of the article that generated it. And the one for this was, Detroit healthcare worker dies after being denied coronavirus test 4 times, daughter says. And that was from NBC News on 25th of April, 2020. She'd worked for almost 30 years at the hospital. In March, she experienced symptoms of coronavirus and drove there, but was refused a test. A week later, she was refused a second test and again sent away from that hospital. The 3rd time, they said she most likely had the virus and to stay home as if she had coronavirus. The 4th time she went, they also didn't test. The 5th time, her family carried her to a different hospital. In this hospital, she died of the virus, proved by the test. And I think that takes me to my time. So I believe I'm coming back later to read a poem at the end, of which I have selected carefully for you all. But again, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm going to put the links to buy the books from small presses in the chat. And if you would rather purchase them from Amazon, that is, of course, your choice. And you just have to search my name and the book title. Okay. See you later.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you. Of course, I have a very soft spot in my heart for form, so I love every one that you read, and I think I might try a tritina. I was thinking of trying a sestina, but no, that's too much. Tritina is manageable. Anyway, I'm going to suggest that folks unmute and talk to Anna for a few minutes.
Anyone got any questions for me before we move?
Anna, I loved hearing you do voices. I don't think I'd ever heard you read in voices. You're wonderful. It was fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. I was into theatre when I was a younger woman, and I got a taste for that sort of thing. And the persona poems just lend themselves to the voices really well. There's another couple in there, but my voices aren't quite reliable as Scottish and Australian, so I tend not to read those.
I liked your part about the nun. I was studying to be a priest when I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
I only lasted 1 year.
Oh.
But it was an incredible year.
Well, there are a lot of nuns in the book, actually. The reason for that, by the way, is that the genesis for the book was that I was working on a poem about, an essay. And I'm glad that my cat has come to visit because she's relevant to what I'm going to read at the end of the reading. This is Juno. Juno, say hi to the pupil. There you go.
Hello.
So Anne Bradstreet was the first housewife poet, and before her, most poets who were women were either nuns or nobility, or they were in some way women out of society, like actresses, women of easy virtue, courtesans, prostitutes, etc., because everyone else was busy having children and raising animals. So that's why I decided to write about those people.
Anna, I enjoyed your Cockney accent, especially the way you switched from perfect Cockney to perfect King's English. We had a bit of a Liza Doolittle moment.
Yeah.
Did you have to do much studying to get it down so well?
No, not really, because I went to college in London. And my father is from London, and he would go into a Cockney accent all the time. So it was something I heard a lot of. That it was easy. But thank you for liking it. It's a fun poem. Well, that one's not very fun because she's very miserable, but it's a fun voice to do.
My wife's a singer, and there's a line from something, I don't know what it is, but we always quote it: nuns in frigid cells. And it's just so evocative that you're sitting there in your cold little room with your bed and your little table and chair, and yet you're still maybe transcendent in some ways in that little frigid cell.
Yeah. So if you read the book, you should come away with the impression that the thing that gives these women happiness is not whether they are in some moral state of virtue or sin. It's whether they could be in a position where they can exercise any control over their lives, right? So the Victorian streetwalker can not have any control over her life. So she is miserable as sin. But some of the nuns, not the ones I read, are also in that position, right? So some of the courtesans are super happy with their lot in life because they have control. And that would be the one sort of moral lesson that I think you should come away with from the book.
I also wanted to say I was happy to hear the beginning of the Titanic song, because I've known the chorus as a barbershop quartet piece for years and years and years. So, and I'd never heard the beginning.
The chorus, something like, it was sad.
It was sad. So sad.
It was
sad.
So sad. Mighty sad. She went down to the bottom of the.
It was sad when that great ship went down.
Ship went down.
We are all being live streamed, so
It's okay.
still on. Just
I have no shame.
I've done that at readings.
There's an alternate chorus first, but I will.
No alternate versions. No, none of those.
All right. No, but it's funny, but I just don't want to take the time. Thanks.
A poet has no shame. I like that.
Yeah.
Let that be the lesson for tonight.
Yes.
We shall have no shame. Right.
It was marvelous. There's just so many positive comments in the chat, and I really enjoyed it, especially your dry wit.
Oh, thank you.
I was laughing a lot. It was muted. You didn't know.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I envy your ability to give such a mesmerizing reading.
Well, especially at 9:34, it's not the time I usually give readings, but one of the virtues of this whole Zoom thing is that I can be on the West Coast and give a reading, whereas it didn't used to be possible. We didn't used to envisage this as a possibility. Yeah. So it's great to be able to share my work with a new set of people.
Yes.
I know I'm going to enjoy it on the page just as much, but what a pleasure you're reading. What a pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Anna. And we'll stop recording in a moment. Those of you in the Zoom room, please stay online if you'd like to take part in the open mic. Thanks to all our YouTube listeners. Please tune in for our next regular Coastside Poetry event on Tuesday, March 8th, when we'll welcome Bay Area poet Maxima Khan. That brings us to the end of tonight's recorded program. Thanks so much for joining us at Coastside Poetry and for helping to keep the lamps of poetry burning.